Hey Summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides Wild Rift video. My name is Nathaning, and today we'll be showing you guys how to counter any champion in Wild Rift. Have you ever struggled against a split pushing Fiora or an unkillable Malphite that you didn't know what to do? We'll be showing you guys how to play against every single type of champion and win more games. Let's get into it. We took all the champions and sorted them into different categories. Each category has their own respective strengths and weaknesses that we're going to be going over in detail. After this video, you'll be equipped with all the knowledge that you need so you can go ahead and queue up and win. Champions that fall into the Enchanter category are usually the support champions. They excel at protecting and peeling for their team, usually have one or more shielding or healing abilities, and some kind of CC. These types of champions are extremely toxic to deal with, since they can just sit behind their carries, buff them up, and win the game without dealing any damage at all. Enchanters are not item dependent, always useful, and bringing extremely good scaling to the table. So, what are you supposed to do against a Lulu that sits behind her Jinx the entire game? She does nothing but cast her shields and buff her team, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though enchanters are extremely useful in team fights and can keep their team alive for ages, they are next to useless if you're able to isolate them from their team. Since most of the enchanters are supports, you can always try to catch them off guard while they are warding. Additionally, they are very vulnerable to any forms of CC. As long as they're not allowed to cast any spells, they're unable to assist their teammates in fights. Never forget, death is the best type of CC. Enchanters are extremely squishy. If you can burst them down, you'll be able to roll all over the enemy team without having to deal with their absurd amount of utility. So, in conclusion, how do we deal with enchanters? We try to isolate them from their team, and if that doesn't work, CC them or just straight up one-shot them. Next up on our list are Bruisers. These champions are mainly seen in the Baron lane or in the jungle. Bruisers are a mix between tanks and full damage carries. They like to take drawn out fights. Most of the Bruisers just want to be in a long lane so they can go ahead and be able to fight the enemy as they run away. They have good DPS and usually have a type of shield, healing, or built-in sustain. Think about Darius. All Darius wants to do is ghost on you, auto-attack you a bunch, and then just finish you off with his ultimate. Sounds familiar with all the people that I date because all they usually do is just ghost me, that's it. There's nothing that you can do about it, I mean he's just so incredibly broken. Well, actually there is an easy way to counter Bruisers. These types of champions are very susceptible to range. As long as you can keep them away from your main carries, Bruisers are unable to do anything. They also don't scale very well. Darius might be very good in the early to mid stages, but as soon as your Dragon Laner hits 3 or 4 items, he won't be able to do anything. The longer the game goes on, the more damage is introduced, and since Bruisers are neither tanks nor full damage, they can't really fulfill a role in the later stages of the game. If they decide to build full tank, Bruisers deal next to no damage, and if they deal full damage, they die in the next couple of auto attacks. So, here's a quick recap on how to counter Bruisers. Keep them out of range and don't let them run you down in a long lane, and most of all, and most importantly, outscale them. Before we continue on with the video, I want to ask you guys the question of the day. Which type of champion do you like playing the most? Make sure you leave your answer in the comments down below. Let's go ahead and talk about tanks. These beefy boys like to protect their team or engage first face into the enemy team. Characteristics for tanks are their great defense, big HP pool, and exceptional utility. On top of that, you have tank items that are extremely cheap compared to offensive items, making tanks very useful with fewer resources. Even though tanks can be very useful in team fights, they have a clear-cut strength and weakness. Tanks have little to no damage. They might be pretty beefy, but they are unable to compete with damage against most other champions. Tanks are very vulnerable to the early stages of the game. In the beginning of each match, tanks are just straight up not tanky, and you can punish them very severely for overstepping their boundaries. You could, for example, freeze your wave in front of your turret, and the tank is unable to do anything about it. He has no damage to clear the wave, and not enough defensive stats to make up for his missing damage, making the tank unable to break the freeze, losing XP and gold in the process. When it comes to the mid and late game, tanks are very weak against split pushers. They excel in team fights, wanting to group up and soak up as much damage as possible. Creating pressure on a side lane forces that tank to leave their team alone, allowing you to flank in and then win the fight. So in the next game you face a Malphite in the Baron lane, try to punish him in the early game, zone him away from the CS and XP, and make him fight for every resource. In the mid game you want to force the enemy team to split up. Create pressure on the side lane, draw a Malphite to it, and when he's there, rotate to your team, force a fight, and then win it. Imagine you are a Dragon Laner walking to the red buff. All of a sudden you see a big X on your champion and then, well, nothing. Just a gray screen. You have been slain by the fed enemy Zed. Feels familiar, doesn't it? Assassins have a ton of damage. Their burst is exceptional. On top of that, the Assassins have the highest solo kill potential in the entire game. They are extremely flashy and snowball unbelievably hard. One kill on the enemy Assassin can make them unplayable for any carry champion. That just means that Assassins are super broken and unbeatable, no? Well, actually, no. There are two sides of the coin. Even though assassins are very good in 1v1 situations and can solo kill anything on the map, they struggle in teamfights and coordinated play. Having lots of vision scattered around the map can make it really tough for the assassin player. Suddenly, he's unable to go for picks since your team knows where he's at. Furthermore, assassins are really bad team fighters. They are required to jump into your team, and then what happens? You can just blow them up with a little bit of damage and any form of CC. Assassins are really squishy, and if they are unable to snowball, they won't have enough damage in a teamfight to blow up your carries, thus they'll be useless. If you are struggling against assassins, try this. Don't walk alone, and if your Ashe decides to split push again, just back her up. You don't want her to be caught by the enemy assassin that's looking for some free kills. Try to teamfight as much as possible, and if the enemy assassin jumps in, CC them and then blow them up. And remember to buy defensive items like Zanya's Enchant and the Locket Enchant or the Guardian Angel. These items make it almost impossible for the assassin to kill you as long as you're not completely out of position. At this point, I want to tell you guys about our awesome Discord server. Over there, we got an awesome community for people that just want to play with each other, share experiences, and talk about anything Wild Rift. It's a great place, and I can only recommend you check it out. The link is in the description down below. Mages shine in teamfights. They scale absurdly well into the game. AP items are really strong, and that in the combination with good AP ratios on their spells turns them into a force to be reckoned with. Champions like Orianna are able to manipulate and control minion waves extremely easily and really well. If you really know how to manipulate the minion wave to your liking, you can go ahead and win a lot more games. It seems like that no matter how good the champion archetype seems to be, there's always some things that you can do to beat them. Generally speaking, mages are very item dependent. Without the needed AP to back them up, champions like Aurelion Sol or Ahri deal next to no damage. And their items are really expensive. Rabadon's Death Cap is the second most expensive item, and for a reason. It's just so damn powerful. Another thing that you need to know about mages is they can't do anything when their abilities are on cooldown. Mages are ability-based champions. After using all of them, they are useless. What are they supposed to do? Auto-attack you for 60 damage? I mean, just like tanks, mages are very good at team fighting, but fall flat in a split push scenario. They are unable to 1v1 any of the main split pushers like Camille, Fiora, or Jax. So, in conclusion, you want to play the game fast into mages. They scale really well, and you want to prevent them from scaling way too much. Also, try to bait out their cooldowns or fight them after they wasted their cooldowns on a wave or objective. You can always try to catch a mage off guard. They have, generally speaking, very low mobility, enabling you to camp them and punish them early on. Don't teamfight against mages, don't play into their cards. Create pressure on the other lanes and force smaller skirmishes. The last champion archetype for today is going to be the Marksman. Marksmen scale incredibly well into the late game. Their DPS is insane, and unlike mages, they are not really reliant on cooldown since most of their damage stems from their auto attacks. They are, like mages, able to control and manipulate waves to their liking and just as, if not more proficient at doing so. Zone the enemy off the CS and XP and you'll create an unsurmountable gap between the dragon lanes. The Marksman's biggest strength is also their greatest weakness, their skill ceiling. The skill ceiling of Marksman champions is incredibly high. They require extremely good mechanics to pilot proficiently. You're going to witness a lot of Marksman players killing themselves due to mechanical outplays, mispositioning in team fights, or just bad macro decisions. On top of that, the Marksman requires a good support. In the laning phase, the support is a driving force when it comes to stuff like creating plays, capitalizing on mistakes, and building vision around Dragon Lane. How often have you seen your Dragon Laner complain about a support not doing anything, standing behind them and pressing one spell from time to time? Even though they have insane late game, Marksmen need items, and these items are quite expensive. They don't have a lot of damage early on, and they are also very squishy. If you want to counter Marksmen, do this. Apply pressure to them early on, manipulate the wave in a way that they miss out on golden experience, delaying their item spikes. Try to catch them out of position and capitalize on their mechanical or macro mistakes. In the end, Marksman players will probably just outplay themselves. Before we end today's video, I want to give you guys one more tip. If you're struggling in lane, having problems killing the enemy, or just being poked into oblivion, you can always call for ganks. Calling for ganks relieves a lot of pressure, and camping one lane can even turn the worst matchup imaginable into your favor. If in doubt, call your jungler. It's a team game after all. Just don't, annoy them too much. And that's all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, had fun, and learned something about the different champion archetypes presented in Wild Rift. If you enjoyed today's video and want to keep up to date with anything Wild Rift, subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on notifications, and join the Discord server. Again, my name is Nathan Ng. I'm signing out. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.